You think people are mysteries, but they're not. Every glance, every pause, every nervous laugh is a confession. They tell you more than they realize, because no one can hide forever. Words lie, but the body whispers the truth. Nietzsche saw it. People wear masks, not to deceive, but to survive. The smile too wide, the silence too heavy, the anger too sharp, all cracks in the armor. And here's the twist. When you learn to read others, you don't just see their wounds, you see your own. The mask you despise out there is the mask you've worn yourself. That's where the real truth begins. Part 1. The masks we wear. People don't walk around naked. Not their bodies, not their minds. They cover themselves. A smile, a laugh that lasts too long, a polite nod when they don't agree. That's the costume. That's the mask. Truth 1. Everyone wears a mask. It isn't always pretty. It isn't always convincing. But it's there. A man shows kindness to everyone he meets. You think, kind soul. Look closer. His hands tremble when silence falls. He keeps talking because he fears being left alone. A woman stands tall, never asks for help, never bends. But at night, she stares at the ceiling, praying no one sees the cracks. Masks aren't lies, they're shields. You wear one too. So do I. The first sign of truth isn't what someone says. It's where they tighten up, where their body betrays them. Watch for tension. That's the edge of the mask. Truth 2. What people hate in others is what they hide in themselves. Projection. The word sounds academic, but it's raw. Think of the man who mocks arrogance every chance he gets. He spits it out like venom, but when he looks in the mirror, he hates how small he feels. So he kills arrogance out there, hoping it silences the same thing inside him. Or the woman who shames liars, calls them out in public, makes a crusade of it. Why does she care so much? Because there's a lie she carries every day. A lie she can't face. This is the sharpest trick of all. People reveal themselves by what they condemn, not by what they praise. We hate in others what we fear in ourselves. Every insult is a confession. So don't just listen to admiration. Listen to criticism. It will tell you what hurts. Truth 3. Silence is louder than words. Words are cheap, easy. We use them to keep the herd moving, to avoid looking too close. But silence, that's where the truth leaks. Ask a question, watch what happens. They pause too long. Their eyes drift. They change the subject. That's not nothing. That's everything. The dodged answer tells you what they don't want to face. The clipped sentence tells you what they can't admit. People think silence hides them. It doesn't. It screams. You don't need to corner someone with words. Just notice the spaces where they refuse to go. That's where the wound is. Truth 4. Loud virtue often hides vanity. The man who tells everyone how honest he is. The woman who parades purity. The activist who calls out every flaw but never stops talking. Look at the volume. Listen to how loud it is. Real goodness doesn't need applause. It doesn't need a microphone. It just acts. But false virtue loves an audience. It needs one. Because it isn't about morality. It's about superiority. Nietzsche called it power in disguise. Morality as theater. The louder the signal, the emptier the core. Truth 5. People lie to themselves first. They're not trying to trick you. They're trying to survive. Think of the man who says, "I'm fine." He says it every day. His friends believe him. Maybe you do too. But he's been saying it to himself for so long, he half believes it. Think of the woman who insists, "I don't care." She repeats it until it sounds true. But the tone cracks. Her eyes drop. Self-deception isn't evil. It's armor. It's how people function in a world that hurts. So when their story doesn't add up, don't rush to call them liars. They've been lying to themselves far longer. They had to. And in those small inconsistencies, you'll find the truth, because the mask never fits perfectly. Truth 6. Superiority hides inferiority. The bragger, the show-off, the man who never lets you forget his titles, his money, his wins. Why the need to remind you? Because inside, he feels invisible. Because the crown is heavy, and underneath it sits a scared child. Watch the ones who cut others down casually. They don't do it from strength. They do it from fear of being overlooked. True confidence doesn't compete. It doesn't announce itself. It just is. The moment someone has to dominate, prove, control, they're not strong. They're compensating. Behind the throne sits a trembling body. Behind the voice of authority sits doubt, hoping no one notices. So what do you do with this? You could judge. You could call people fake. You could use it to get leverage. But you'd miss the point. Reading people isn't about calling them out. It's about understanding. That man who interrupts you every sentence. You think he's arrogant. Maybe he's just terrified of being forgotten. That woman who posts her happiness every day online. You think she's proud. Maybe she's desperate for someone to notice her pain. The one who won't look you in the eye when they say, "I'm fine." Don't believe the words. Believe the body. Use these truths not as weapons. Use them as windows. Because the more clearly you see someone, the less reason you have to hate them. And that's the hidden secret. Nietzsche didn't want you to read people so you could control them. He wanted you to see past the masks, so you'd stop being fooled, so you'd start connecting. And once you see the mask slip, you can't unsee it. A nervous laugh that doesn't fit the words. A tone that changes when the subject cuts too close. The way eyes dart away when fear sneaks in. These aren't accidents. They're clues. Once you notice them, the world looks different. People aren't mysteries anymore. They're just afraid to be seen. And that's where part 1 leaves you. Not with a list of tricks, but with a lens, a way of looking. Masks, projections, silences, virtue too loud, self-lies, fake superiority. 6 truths, each one a knife cutting through surface, each one pointing at the same thing. Fear. Everyone is hiding, not from you, from themselves. And when you know that, you stop taking things personally. You stop reacting to the mask. You start watching the human underneath. That's the beginning. That's the ground floor. That's where the work starts. Part 2. Fear behind actions. Fear runs the show. Not desire, not logic. Fear. Most people don't see it. They think they act from choice. They think they act from what they want. But watch closely. You'll see the same shadow behind every move. Truth 7. Most actions are driven by fear. A man over-explains, sentence after sentence, trying to cover every angle. Why? He's afraid you'll misunderstand, afraid you'll dismiss him, afraid you'll walk away. A woman dominates a conversation. She doesn't stop, doesn't breathe. Why? She's afraid silence will erase her. She's afraid quiet means she doesn't matter. Another person disappears, fades into the background, never makes a demand. Why? Because attention feels dangerous. Because rejection feels unbearable. The patterns look different, but the root is the same. Fear. Fear of abandonment. Fear of humiliation. Fear of failure. Fear of not being enough. Nietzsche knew this. He didn't see humans chasing dreams. He saw them avoiding nightmares. So when you want to read someone, don't ask what they want. Ask what they're afraid to lose. That's where the truth lives. Truth 8. Criticism is projection. A man mocks emotional people, always has a joke ready, always has a sneer. Why? Because he's terrified of his own emotions. A woman belittles others for their appearance. Sharp comments, casual cruelty. Why? Because she's fighting her own reflection. Because every word is a battle against herself. Criticism looks outward, but it's really inward. Judgment is almost never about the other. It's about the self, the wound, the insecurity, the thing they can't bear to hold, so they throw it at someone else. So when you hear constant criticism, don't look at the target, look at the speaker. What are they confessing without meaning to? Projection isn't just defense, it's confession. It's a crack in the mask. And if you listen right, you'll hear exactly where the pain lives. Truth 9. False confidence hides guilt. You've met them. The people who always seem in control. Always calm. Always sure. But look longer. The jaw is tight. The preparation is obsessive. The anger flashes quick under pressure. It's not real confidence, it's performance. Nietzsche saw it in leaders, preachers, teachers, those who built a stage of certainty to cover the chaos inside. They weren't fearless. They were guilty. They were ashamed. And certainty was the mask. So when you meet someone who never hesitates, never doubts, never bends, don't be intimidated. Be curious. What are they trying to bury? What guilt drives the act? Real peace doesn't perform. It doesn't need an audience. So when you see the performance of strength, know it's covering something raw. Truth 10. Exaggeration reveals truth. This one is subtle, but once you see it, you'll never unsee it. A man says, "I don't care what anyone thinks." Again and again. What does it mean? It means he cares deeply. A woman says, "I'm always happy." She says it with a wide smile. What does it mean? It means she isn't. Exaggeration is the ego shouting, trying to drown out doubt, trying to silence the whisper that says the opposite. Nietzsche believed extremism of any kind shows imbalance, not strength. When someone's words are too absolute, too clean, too loud, don't believe the words. Read the insecurity underneath. Exaggeration is volume. The question is, what are they trying to silence? Truth 11. The hunger for control hides inner chaos. Control. We crave it. Jobs, relationships, routines. We want to keep everything tight, predictable, safe. But some people take it further. They demand control. They micromanage. They suffocate. It looks like strength, but it isn't. It's fear. When the inner world is chaos, the outer world must be caged. The stricter the order outside, the more fragile the self inside. If someone can't handle change, if they dominate others, if they clutch at every detail, it's not because they're powerful. It's because they feel powerless within. So instead of fearing the controlling person, see them clearly. They're terrified that the second they let go, it will all fall apart. The tighter the grip, the weaker the hand. Truth 12. Performance is emptiness in disguise. Look at the endless stage. Social media, parties, workplaces, everywhere. The person always posing, always curating, always saying, "Look at me." It doesn't come from power. It comes from need. Nietzsche saw it before the world had cameras and screens. He saw people who couldn't stand to be unseen, who filled the silence with noise. The louder the performance, the emptier the core. A person who knows themselves doesn't need an audience. They don't need applause. They already feel whole. But the one who performs? They perform because they don't believe they'll be loved without it. They perform because silence feels like death. So when you see the show, don't be fooled. It isn't a show of power, it's a whisper of need. And then it happens. You start to feel it. The shift, you walk into a room, and the words stop mattering. The patterns speak louder. The interrupter isn't arrogant. He's scared. The boaster isn't superior. He's wounded. The controller isn't strong. He's desperate. You're not reading minds. You're reading the mask. And Nietzsche gave you the flashlight. This isn't just a trick. It's a responsibility. Because once you see people this clearly, you can't go back. And the hardest part? You realize most people are suffering quietly, behind polished smiles, behind polished lives. Reading them isn't about leverage. It's about grace. It's about compassion. See the child behind the critic, the fear behind the bully, the guilt behind the arrogance. When you see it, you don't get weaker, you get unshakable. That's part 2, the layer beneath the mask, the layer of fear, guilt, chaos, and noise. 6 truths, each one pulling the mask tighter until it splits. And now, to go deeper, part 3, where childhood wounds bleed into adult lives, where envy, silence, and the hunger to be remembered reveal the soul itself. Part 3, childhood wounds. People say they act from reason, that they weigh facts, that they think first, feel second. It sounds good, it sounds civilized, but it isn't true. It's never been true. Truth 13. No one speaks from logic, they speak from pain. A man says, love is just a lie. He says it with a steady voice. But listen closer. It isn't logic, it's defense. Somewhere he loved and lost. Somewhere he decided never again. A woman says, trust no one. She sounds certain. But certainty is just armor. Her logic is stitched from fear. A betrayal, maybe more than one. This is how it works. People form beliefs from wounds. Then they dress those wounds in reason. So don't ask what they believe. Ask what broke them. Ask what they're trying not to feel again. Their opinions aren't attacks, they're shields. And when you see that, you stop fighting. You start understanding. Truth 14. How someone reacts to weakness shows their strength. It's easy to respect the powerful. It's easy to nod at success. That says nothing. Want to know who someone is? Watch them with the weak. A boss who yells at workers who can't fight back. A parent who shames a child for mistakes. A friend who laughs at someone's tears. They look strong. They're not. They're still fighting themselves. They punish weakness because they hate their own. But the one who can sit with sadness, the one who can forgive when they could punish, the one who doesn't need to humiliate the fragile, that person has already won the war inside. Strength isn't domination. It's restraint. It's compassion when cruelty would be easy. That's how you rid character. Not in the spotlight, in the shadows. Not with the powerful, with the powerless. Truth 15. Fear of being forgotten drives the hunger for attention. Some people need to be seen. Every room they enter, every story they tell, every outfit they wear. At first glance, it looks like confidence. It isn't. It's fear. The child ignored becomes the adult who screams, "Notice me." They create noise not because they love it, but because silence feels like death. You think they're vain? Maybe. But deeper than vanity is panic. The panic of being invisible, of living and dying without leaving a mark. So they overcompensate. Performance, drama, chaos, anything but silence. So when you see someone who's too much, don't rush to judge. Ask what they're afraid will happen if they aren't enough. Sometimes attention isn't arrogance. Sometimes it's a cry. Truth 16. The people they attack are the ones they envy. This one cuts deep, hard to accept, but it's true. The man who mocks the confident, he wants their ease. The woman who gossips about the successful, she wants their freedom. Criticism is easier than admiration, so they destroy what they secretly desire. To see someone living the part of you abandoned, it hurts. It burns. So instead of celebrating, you attack. Envy is unspoken desire. It says, I want that too, but I don't believe I can have it. See this in others, and you stop fearing their hate. See this in yourself, and you start to heal. Truth 17. People repeat their childhood, not their beliefs. They say people change, or they say people never change. Nietzsche would say, people repeat. The child silenced becomes the adult who never listens. The child punished for feelings becomes the adult who shuts them down. The child who had to earn love becomes the adult who performs for it, even when it's toxic. They think they're acting from choice. They're not. They're reenacting old scripts. So if you want to read someone, don't just ask who they are. Ask who they had to be. Behavior is biography. Every adult is a child still waiting to feel safe. Truth 18. Patterns are confessions. Here is the last truth, the one that changes everything. A man ghosts when things get close. A woman works until she collapses. Another flirts with everyone but connects with no one. Random, number these are patterns, and patterns are confessions. They say, this is how I protect myself. They say, this is where I was hurt. They say, this is what I fear repeating. You don't need their words. You just need to listen to the rhythm. Because the rhythm is the story. Nietzsche believed if you read the pattern, you hear the truth before it's spoken. And when you do, something happens. You stop personalizing. You stop judging. You start seeing. You become a mirror, not a weapon. You see the human and still choose grace. That's power, not control, not manipulation, but the power of vision. So here we are. 18 truths, each one a knife cutting closer to the bone. Masks, fears, childhood wounds, patterns, none of it just about them. All of it about you. Because the more clearly you see others, the more clearly you see yourself. Every judgment a mirror, every admiration a hunger. This isn't the end, it's the beginning. A new way of seeing. Nietzsche didn't want you to manipulate. He wanted you to awaken, to know that behind every mask is a wound. Behind every wound is a soul still fighting to survive. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. You see them, you see yourself, and you remember, everyone is just trying to make it through, carrying masks they didn't choose. That's the truth. All 18 of them. Closing period. We spend our lives looking outward, trying to figure out who people are, what they mean, what they want. And here's the truth. Every mask you see in them is a mask you've worn yourself. Every lie they tell is a lie you once whispered to survive. Every judgment you cast is a reflection. What you hate in them is what you fear in yourself. What you admire in them is what you secretly long to be. People aren't just mirrors, they're reminders. Nietzsche never wanted you to turn this into a weapon. Not a way to manipulate, not a way to win arguments, not a way to feel superior. He wanted you to wake up, to see that beneath the armor, beneath the pose, beneath the noise, there is always a soul. Frightened, searching, trying to make it through the day. You don't need to tear off the mask. You only need to see around it, to recognize the trembling hand behind the steady voice, the child behind the critic, the ache behind the arrogance. And when you see it, really see it, something changes. You don't react. You don't hate. You don't get pulled into their storm. You stand steady. Not because you're above them, but because you understand them. That's the real strength. Not control, not dominance. Clarity, compassion. Every truth about others is a truth about you. And the more clearly you see them, the more clearly you see yourself. Behind every mask is a human being. And when you see that, you become something rare, not fooled, not bitter. Awake.